Disclaimer. The information on this show and provided from or through this show is general in nature and is not specific to you or anyone else. You should not make any decision, financial investment, life, or otherwise, based on any of the information presented on this show without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional or advisor. You understand that you are using any and all information available on or through this show at your own risk. Try not to be a f***ing idiot.
Thanks for your time, Dan. We've obviously known each other for a few years now, going back since starting the VR AR meetup. It was a virtual reality only meetup at that time. I think that was maybe 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
It feels longer.
It's sometime around then. I feel like it was 2015, which is 5 years ago. It doesn't feel like it was 5 years ago.
Really? It feels like 5 years for me. But maybe I've just been more stressed than you over the last 5 years. So we met at that meetup. Is that how we first connected? And that was back at the Brisbane Powerhouse, running the meetup out of there.
You know what? I think actually now I think back to it. When I think back to it, someone actually from a sort of a business networking group that I was going to at the time sent me an email saying, "Hey, I met this interesting person,
is a good word.
That I thought you should get in contact with. His name's Lex. He doing stuff in VR and blah 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 blah, and he runs these meetups and blah blah. And literally that was a Tuesday morning. I think they told me this, and I was planning to go to the VR meetup, the first one that I'd ever went to that night.
Yeah, and then you didn't go.
So,
you did go. Oh, no, you did go.
Yeah, I did go. Yeah,
that's good. Well, that's great.
So I think I was like, yeah, I'm actually, or possibly, I can't quite remember, but I'd either just met you at one of those, and then this person's like, "Oh, you should meet this person." I'm like, "Yeah, I have," or yeah. But anyway,
I remember you invited me to one of those meetups, the business, because you go to small business events around Queensland, or in Brisbane in particular.
That's right, I did.
Yeah, I don't think I ended up going, but we connected. I think what really stood out for me was the fact that you were specifically an audio guy, and you have a background in audio engineering. And at the time, and still even to this day, it's pretty evident when you try out any of this VR AR experiences, there's a difference between people who get audio right and if they get it wrong, and it can make a big difference. It just the sound, right? VR, AR, virtual reality in particular, being something that we're supplementing what we're seeing visually, and that's only one of our senses. But the more simulation we can combine and stimulation we can combine around the different senses that we have as a human being, audio being one of the strongest ones, if you can get that right, it can be such a powerful experience. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think audio really comes to the forefront, or it becomes more important in an immersive technology like virtual reality or augmented reality or something, because it becomes more of a directional tool.
Yes. Yeah.
Because people can look anywhere. If you want to draw them to some particular visual point, then you can use audio or spatial audio to be able to force them, or gently coerce them, I should say, to look in that particular direction that you want them to, and that sort of thing. So,
you were doing a bit of game development back then, though, weren't you? And I remember you really got into selling audio online. One of the things you said to me was exactly that. Whether it's virtual reality, it is just equally as important to have good audio across any sort of digital content. And I know that's a fact for YouTube videos as well, podcasts like this. Just your media consumption, by having the right audio, it actually engages people. People will stay online, will listen better if you've got better audio effectively. I've heard stories about...
I think
I was just going to say, with YouTube, for example, just quickly say, like, the YouTube videos, you can have really great visuals, quality recording visually, but if you're lacking the audio, people will tune out. Same thing with your podcast. If you don't get great audio on your podcast, people just it's almost like a sense of frustration if you can't hear someone properly.
Yeah.
And they'll tune out. Yeah, so I've heard people suggest pushing your audio quality and making sure that you get that high level, and versus the visuals are almost secondary to the audio.
Well, I mean, of course, a lot of people do watch YouTube videos on silent, and they might watch or look at subtitles and things like that and whatever else. But in the times that they are going to be, that they want that experience where they're listening, it is important that it is of a standard that, you know, is usable and that sort of thing. And it does definitely affect the engagement that people will have to that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I guess there are levels of toleration depending on the content as well. Like what some people might tolerate in a podcast might be less, the quality could be potentially less than if it is a YouTube video or something, or some other particular thing that they're used to higher quality in certain things, versus other particular mediums and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I think striving for as best a quality that you can, and a lot of times it doesn't have to involve much work to increase the audio experience exponentially. Even by the fact of what you're doing here, you're wearing some earbuds. Yeah. You're using a separate microphone there, but you're using earbuds to stop the sound from feedback or looping back through the microphone, for example. Yeah. Some people forget to do that, and that becomes annoying and hard to listen to and that sort of thing. So it's just little tiny things that doesn't mean you have to necessarily buy the best equipment and acoustically treat everything. Obviously, those things help.
Absolutely.
But it's not necessarily the first step. Yeah.
And what I guess I'd be interested in, we've never talked about where you come from in terms of your background and how you got into audio engineering. You've obviously play a few instruments. Is it a background in playing at pubs and then realizing, I could make more money if I was an audio engineer?
Not exactly. I mean, if you're visually looking at our conversation here, you can see a bunch of instruments in the background of my screen, none of which I can play very well.
It's just for the looks, right?
It's just for the looks. I wish I could play those instruments, but I guess they're there to encourage me for something.
Dream big, Dan.
Yeah, but I used to play. You know, I guess it really. Just briefly, I suppose it started out for me of playing in bands in high school, and I have actively been, I guess, involved in music. My parents were pretty active in sort of allowing me to do that through schooling and stuff. I think I started in year 4 playing the trombone of all things. Realized 6 months after doing that I was not very good at it.
That's all right. It's not necessarily the sexiest instrument out there, to be honest. So, No,
well, there's a couple of artists that do make it pretty interesting, but it wasn't for me. I think the thing that deterred me the most with it is that I couldn't, of course I was young, but it was like, I need to move this slide to a certain position to get a certain note, have my mouth in a certain way to produce the note, and also follow a rhythm of whatever I'm trying to do on screen as well. And I kept looking back because it was like an orchestra setting, like in primary school, the primary school orchestra. And I kept looking back at the percussion people, and they're always smiling and just looks like they're just hitting crap. So,
what is that triangle called? That's always been the instrument that I wanted to master and pursue a career in that. I wonder how much they get paid. Do you know how much they get paid?
Well, I'm not sure what the average triangle player
is. It called a triangle player, or is there some, a Latin term?
They're probably a percussionist. They might just come under a percussionist or whatever else. I don't know if it's
specializing in the triangle.
Yeah.
I wonder how many years of uni you have to study to get good at that. I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
Well, I reckon it'd be a while. I reckon it's an important. Less
it's all about rhythm.
It's all about the wrist. That's right. But I just kept looking back there, going, I feel like that's a better time. Or and I was also like, hang on, they've just got to hit things in time.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about like putting tuning stuff. So I guess maybe that shows a lot about my personality or something, which is concerning. But I was like, this is half the work. I can still have the fun of playing music, but it's half the work. So I went and did that, you're hitting the snare drum, or you'd only have one sort of, like you said, you're either on the triangle or the crash cymbal or the big floor tom or the big sort of bass drum or hitting snare. Yeah. And so that felt like it was easy and it was fun or whatever else. But then when I started playing the drum kit, then I realized I'd made a huge mistake, because obviously that to be great at the drum kit, it requires a lot of skill and dedication, and you got to be ambidextrous and all that sort of stuff. And then you got to lug all that stuff around. So in hindsight, if you do want to play around, the drum is always the first to get there and set up and the last to leave, and all that kind of thing. And so that was kind of a mistake. But I really do it's the only thing I can sort of play confidently that besides being stupid in front of people, like, is the drums.
And you can sing.
I do really enjoy that. Let's
be honest, you can sing. Oh, yeah, and I saw that video that you published after a few drinks. Once again,
that was being stupid.
Yeah, after a few drinks, I think anyone can sing, right? After you just got to get that tipping point, and then you go too far, and then the words don't sound quite right. They just kind of blend together, and it's just a
and
noise.
That's probably the video you saw of me.
No, I was actually impressed. I was impressed. You were at that right intersection between enough liquids and enough confidence. Liquid courage is what they call it.
Yes,
we all need a little bit of liquid courage.
But indeed. And but anyway, so I guess I started playing music, and that was kind of a passion. But then my sister mentioned to me, I didn't know how to turn that into a rounded sort of career.
So you were thinking, thinking about a career? Like, at what point were you thinking about a career? Because you start off with the trombone, and that was early. You're saying primary school? And then in primary school, you're looking at drums, or post-primary school, then university. Give us the fast, I guess, version of that, and how you figured out what you could do commercially.
Yeah, I guess in high school, I sort of was interested in making a go of how to make music a sort of career somewhat. And then my sister threw out the idea that she had a friend that was doing some sort of sound engineering. And so I looked into that, and the careers counselor at my school at the time was like, I wanted to do a university degree and that kind of stuff. I thought that sounded pretty interesting. And she was like, there's nothing like that exists except a short course at TAFE. And I said, oh, well, that's not really what I do. So I took a year off, and then realized upon doing my own Google search that there's heaps of like degrees in audio. I don't know what that counselor was talking about, but you got the con, obviously, the conservatorium and a bunch of other particular things going on. So I just studied then, or I just independently did my own sort of practice and stuff, and got the chops up and the skills to get portfolio together to audition for the conservatorium.
Wow, jeez.
And I did audition for the drums, but also the music technology, and then another course they did, which is the popular music one, which is sort of a combination of performance and production. And that was the one that I ended up getting in and decided to do, and then just spent the next 3 years recording music, just on the other side of that, and getting really interested in the production side. And then that's the rest is history from there. I suppose it's just being an evolution of.
It's easier than carrying around a bunch of drums,
but yeah, I mean, I still was doing that for a while. I still do that a bit, but I guess I like the idea that I wanted to have enough skills to be able to release my own music without necessarily having to give it to someone else to do that.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Which is kind of
there's something to be said, especially with that, I guess, course in a career for people who, and I see this a lot, there's a lot of obviously young people, and I fell into this bucket as well, trying to figure out what career they wanted to do, and then fall into that pathway of, well, I need to go through university. And And I mean, everyone talks about it now. You don't have to go to university to do what you want to do.
No.
I don't know what
No.
it is, but there must be this level of, because of the uncertainty, people wanting to feel more certain. They think doing a degree or a course and doing that locally as well, that could be online, but they choose to do it locally, seems to give people just that mental support, like the mental certainty, or feel like they're on the right path. I'm not going to discredit knowing the right people is really important. And I did go to uni. I thought the content was 5 years old, like 5 years behind.
Yeah.
5 years behind. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But the people that I got to meet was really important, and they've played instrumental roles for me after.
I think whichever avenue you decide to take, you've just got to be working hard. That's really what it comes down to. Some people need the structure of that. Okay, I'm doing this for a
certificate or something.
Yeah, a certificate or something. I guess there are benefits of that. If it's a recognized course, the government will get off your back about, claiming some sort of new start allowance, whatever else, so that you have actually getting paid technically from them to study in something. If you were trying to do these things just independently, you would need to find funding for yourself during that sort of learning period, I guess, is one particular thing to
That's a good point,
look at.
Yeah. But would you, if you were to do it again, would you, I know there was that gap where you didn't have a paid job in music or audio, but you took the leap, and would have been a gap where you're just brushing up your skills, trying to get better and better and better. If you were to do it again, would you apply, get a job somewhere, and actually, just straight up intern at a company, learn by looking over people's shoulders? I guess it depends on your learning style, but there's that route, and I've heard that as another potential route to take rather than study.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, throughout my whole degree of studying, I was interning at a studio. I was working as an in-house engineer at a studio outside of that. So again, I think it comes down to, I personally wanted the time to explore and sort of develop, and found that degree that worked for me. And then I was still trying to work hard and do as much as I could in and around in that. And look, whether absolutely that is a viable option is to build up through, you don't need that formal training if you can get in somewhere.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not available to everyone.
Yeah. No, the financial circumstances of that's really interesting. You're right. Yeah, at that young of an age, sometimes it can be really, really hard to be able to put the time aside to be able to study. And if you've got financial support to do that, then that could be the best route to go. But you highlighted the fact that you got to work hard. To be honest, everyone should know that by now. Yeah. We've had the internet for this long.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Gary Vee. There's a million other freaking people out there that say it comes down to working hard. Like every single, what's the golden answer to the golden question? How do I succeed? Work hard. You got to have a level of interest. Consistently level of interest in the work that you're doing. Think around and outside of the box. Look for where the needs are rather than just trying to show up and get people to tell you what to do. Like, you figure it out. That's probably one of the hardest things is not, well, let's dive into like where the music industry is going, because this is a good example. There is no more roadmap, really, and it's starting to get really murky, really, really strange. I've talked to you about AI and music production with AI, right? I remember we caught up at the coffee shop a while ago to talk about how to sell audio online, and I showed you an audio clip, and I kind of fudged things a little bit. I only gave you a certain amount of information, and that audio that I showed you initially, I got your feedback on it. That was purely from the push of a button. And I'll have to link the platform up, AIVA, I think it is. And you can log in, you register, even on a free account, you can start, you just click this button and it will generate audio tracks. And from your feedback, without you knowing that, you were saying, do you remember what you said? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I can't quite remember exactly, but I think
do you remember listening to it?
I do remember listening to it there. And it was. I liked the fact that you've that I didn't pick. I definitely didn't pick because I was going in under the assumption that you're like, hey, I've been making this stuff, and so I didn't even think, hang on a sec, this could be AI or whatever else. I didn't think, I think I did make a comment where I said some of the chords or the changes that you were making were a little bit sort of not normal or a bit kind of
you picked that
obscure.
Up. Yeah, you picked that up. The exact words that you said. It was kind of like it was a bit mechanical for you. It was a little bit off. It didn't sound. You were saying it didn't sound. You didn't feel it. Like it's almost like it was just too hard, too exact, and it didn't have that slight, organic swing to it.
So that might have been. Yeah, that was probably like in the articulation and the velocity of certain sounds and that sort of thing. Like it needed to have a bit more feeling and dynamic range and how the notes were hit on some of the.
I remember you saying that.
Yes, on some of the instruments and things like that. Which, to be honest, even if you were going to create that stuff yourself, you would have to spend a lot of time. If you're going to input MIDI data in yourself to create, like if I was going to do that, I would have to spend a fair bit of time refining the performance to make it sound natural and that sort of thing anyway.
Yeah.
So if you just generated that sort of skeleton from AI, it would be expected that you would still then have to massage a few things.
Yeah.
But it's pretty interesting, and I'd like to check out that site actually, because I have a friend of mine that's working with AI music for a company in Brisbane here, and doing they've released things of where the actual AI computer is jamming out with a human in real time.
Wow.
So the human
it's
plays
incredible.
The human plays like a jazz piano type of passage, 4 bars or something. It listens to that and then goes, oh, you played that, so I'm going to do this. And then the human goes, yeah, that was cool, and I'm going to adapt to that by doing this. And they're going back and forth.
Do you want to give them a plug,
like
or is
that,
that a little bit? Is that top secret for now?
Oh no, it's not top secret. That's Pop Gun Creative, I think.
Yeah. Very cool what they're working on.
I've been looking. Yeah, they're doing some interesting stuff there, and a few different avenues of things that they're doing there. Just sort of, they also had a friend of mine that was trying to. I think they'd organised sort of the data creation side or the music creation side, but then it's like, how do we make this sound good? What would an audio producer do to this? Kind of like the step where I guess you brought me your music, and I was saying, you need to work on this and that. They're getting someone to do that and trying to mimic that how that person's responding to their audio and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the path forward seems to be ever changing. It's faster and faster, it seems, and the path to any, I guess, career is a choice between multiples of options. It's becoming less and less of a here's the one track path to become successful, and there's a million different ways that you can go about commercializing what you do. And with AI on top of that, do you think that adds pressure to your industry, or what does it mean for someone who would be making music? If at the push of a button they could just generate the music, I have an idea of what it could be, only because I was watching how the music industry responded to torrenting, and dirty word for the music industry, and how they've moved in that space. You might have more info on this, but I've seen a lot of them move into these online platforms where you stream it. And so it's more about the audio and the music industry recognizing that convenience is really important, and the fact that there's more people online, they can reach a market that's global. It is challenging, but it's global compared to if you have a record store and you're selling the physical top 10 tracks of 2000, and you got to get the foot traffic and you got to distribute that all physically. With an online model, you can charge 1 cent to $1, get 100,000 people buy that one track rather than an album. and you can commercialize what you're doing really quickly. Again, super competitive. I understand that, but I guess that's my thought process behind where the music industry's been going is that they've realized they can't compete with pirating. So how about they make it easier for the end customer and more convenient and more customized?
They make it more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we're still trying to work out how that all plays out, because, whether that is a acceptable model for longevity for a musician is still, the data's still not there yet to sort of, I mean, it's sort of, the data that is there is virtually saying that you cannot rely on the consumption of your music alone via these platforms to sustain yourself, unless you're someone like Taylor Swift, or those kind of things. The people that are really capitalizing on the streaming platforms and that sort of things are bands that started out their careers before those things existed, i.e. in the 90s, 80s, 70s. So I've bought a CD or a physical medium of an artist, but that CD now sits on the shelf. I paid the $15, $20 for that, maybe listened to it back in the day or whatever, but now I don't listen to that. I stream it. So I'm giving them more money per stream, but they've already got my $15 from the physical copy. But that's because so they're in the best position where people have bought it, but then now via accessibility and convenience, people are just streaming their music. But when you're fully trying to release just in a digital world, where less and less people are actually buying your music and they just sort of want to consume it passively, or what they nearly perceive as free because it's subscription based or whatever else, and that sort of thing, it's, you got to have other avenues of how you're bringing in revenue. Live gigs being the major one, which is at the moment in coronavirus time, that is
destroyed. Absolutely destroyed.
Destroys that.
That's a good point about those live events, live gigs. I've noticed that a lot of the musicians that I listen to, which aren't really musicians, more in the rap space over in America, they really are about making shock video, shock audio, publishing that, getting the hype around them. You get enough views on YouTube. It's not about necessarily making money through those views on YouTube. It's about the following and the hype you get behind it. They start selling merch, straight away start booking, these theaters or venues to go to and perform at, and they're making the money off the actual performance of people showing up at the show. And the shows get crazier and crazier and crazier. And it's just about the experience someone gets from physically going there. And then on top of that, selling merch. So, and the merch to me is, a lot of the merch is just garbage. It's just like knockoff, someone wears it for a couple of months, then it ends up in landfill. So I don't really believe in it too much, but it is seems to be one way that some of these artists are making a lot of money.
Well, yeah, it's like all those, I guess you need to, the music is an advertisement to get people to engage in your message or to want to support you in other ways.
And then you siphon, it's like siphoning that attention, like that, the old Gary Vaynerchuk talks about siphoning attention from your social media. So I guess, again, we don't really know where it's going, but what are your thoughts on audio in general? We've done a project together for an insurance company locally that involved a virtual reality experience, but they were interested, and we delivered a audio piece to that VR experience, which was 3D audio, would you say? So it was meant to, again, come back to stimulating the user's experience, make them feel like they're actually there while watching this training video in a VR headset, virtual experience. So with that audio, do you think we're going to get better audio experiences? I guess it depends on the backbone of the internet, whether we're going to get a better internet connection.
Well, I think, like, just in general, where things, the the question sort of is about how things are changing as a musician or as an audio practitioner and all that sort of thing. And I think in general it's more, and certainly what I've noticed with my career is that the ability to, of course you want to specialize, but you also need to diversify. That's not even a word, is it?
Diversify.
Diversify. Thank God I'm editing this podcast. I can cut out all
No, you have to leave it in. You have to leave it in. I'm the client. I demand that you leave that in.
I will. Diversify. You need to be able to have a diverse sort of skill set to be able to work in the VR space or work in the game space or just normal music or whatever else. I mean, and look, maybe there's two schools of thoughts on this. I've always been a person that kind of enjoys throwing myself across different mediums.
Yeah.
Like in a given week, I mean, today even I have tweaked a mix for a musical artist like that needed to do a couple of revisions. So that's just straight, normal, standard sort of music production. I've done some work with I'm working with an artificial intelligence company as well in spoken word.
Oh wow!
And we're trying to work out how to we'll get to a place where via text to synthesis, you think it sounds like a certain person, and it's virtually just been synthesized from nothing.
What are the challenges with that from your perspective?
Oh well, at this point, it's
everything.
It's just it's just getting to be honest, like it's pretty crazy how it can sound like a person. As far as like mimic the way, like if we fed in your hour-long conversation, we'd be able to produce a Lex model
do it.
that sort of sounds like you, talks like you, flows the way your sense and structures are with a bit of work, but it sounds like you've recorded in a terrible recording environment.
Oh, okay. Right.
So it's kind of at this point, or a not so great recording environment. So there's a few. It's more so on the. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than this because obviously I'm only on one particular aspect. I'm just getting consulted on as an audio professional to kind of work out what these are. But it's sort of, to be honest, I liken the challenges to what I assume audio people would have been going through when developing music and sound for this Super Nintendo or the NES.
Yeah. You're at that cutting edge. You're almost, there's no answers. There's only questions. And it's up to you and your team to pave the way. That's such a great feeling to have in the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so it's more, so I guess it's like, well, how do you've only got this amount of space or bandwidth to play with, make music in that kind of thing. So it's sort of,
you've got constraints and you're trying to fit the solution within the constraints that you've got.
Yeah. And whether the outcome has to change a bit because maybe we're not quite there to just make it totally replaced like us, but anyway, that's like working. I find that really interesting, like trying to work on that kind of stuff. And so
what is the outcome for
doing
this,
that?
What's the outcome? Obviously we've seen deepfakes being, you can train your algorithm to be able to overlay images of another face onto someone else's face and make it look like someone else was giving the Trump speech. That's visuals. And then with audio, I think with the visuals with deepfakes, I'm also hearing a lot how Hollywood is looking at using it. So you're getting some famous actors who can potentially license out their look, and then they don't necessarily have to act in every single movie or even in each particular scene where the stunt double might be doing something really dangerous, but you want to get a close-up shot of that stunt double doing something dangerous.
Of course, with all these things, there's going to be negative uses or terrible uses for all this type of technology, right? The same with like if we get to the point where you can mimic your voice that you cannot tell the difference, then obviously someone could type in what they want you to say and then go, this person said this, or you know, use your voice replica to hack into your a voice
Your
recognition
bank
to
account
Google or blah blah blah.
Phone banking.
There's all that side of stuff, but the end goal, I think, or one of the goals for all this stuff is rapid prototyping. So let's say you do plan to use Arnold Schwarzenegger for your next. You want his voice in a
song,
computer game or something,
and
or whatever, So instead of contacting Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you might say, hey, we want to use your modeled voice to do prototyping of scripting and this, that, and the other, and how it flows. And then when you're ready to do the final pass, that's when you get the real person. That's
amazing. I didn't even think of that.
To do that kind of stuff.
I didn't even think of that.
So, but also another industry is actually in the podcast industry of that. Maybe people they want to create like a ad of their own, or a musician
I thought you were going to say that we could just get me interview people, but it's not really me. It's just my voice, and we'll do some deep fakes. Well, you could be me interviewing people, where you just deep fake my face on yours, the voice, and then away we go.
Yeah, that's right. Or it's more to the point that you could eventually potentially edit text, and then maybe you're like, oh, I should have said this, and then you could just delete that and change that.
That's
or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah.
But again, it's things like that. But it's it's more in the It's more about prototyping, like being able to get that person, or some big high profile personalities. You might be able to get them to be the narrator on your TV ad or your radio ad, but you're licensing the machine to do it, versus actually them doing it for a smaller fee or something. And obviously there'd have to be sort of things in that, the David Attenborough doesn't want to be on a ad for anti-climate change or something, so they'd have limitations to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of for things like that is where they're going.
I think there's a massive gap, and blockchain was meant to be the savior for this. I think it's not out completely, but there is a massive opportunity for some sort of digital certification or stamp of approval that is. So that people can protect their voice and can provide a stamp to prove that what is being published online is not. It's going to be really hard, but to be able to,
there is a lot of There's actually There's actually, they are developing audible sort of stamps outside the range of human hearing that can be picked up. So that that's what will happen, is that in certain software they'll be required to put like an audible stamp, which will be in the frequency range that's outside of what we hear, but you'll be able to see it on a spectrogram or something. So if I was here recording like this and I say something, that stamp wouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
But if someone generated something, you'd have that sort of stamp in there or whatever else, and or that signature or that sort of thing.
Yeah, similar to what I'm seeing with obviously with the growth of sharing social media platforms, and also with the accessibility being online. You can jump on to your bank account onto someone else's computer or via a different phone, and I mean, you really don't want to be doing that. But I'm seeing it go as far as anything that you can log into is starting to track whether you're logging into it via a new device or not, and even location-wise. So if you've logged into something like onto a new device via Gmail, for example, and you're logging in from Brisbane, it'll actually send a warning sign shot through to you, like a text message to your phone to, say, check your emails. Did you just log into a new device in this particular location? If not, press this button now to take action. And so I know it's scary for some people, but technology is getting closer and closer to us and needs to get closer and closer at some point. Otherwise, how are you going to certify digitally that person really is the person behind the screen, effectively. But this all really, I wanted to touch on Vocaloids. Have you got much experience with Vocaloids?
Not in that term anyway.
All right, I'll send you some stuff after this.
Expand.
It basically large algorithms that are used to feed different singing tracks. I'm going to have to send you a link because I can't quite describe it very well. Effectively, the output being you can type out a song and assign a Vocaloid to it, and then it will sing, and you can adjust the tones per word, and you can edit it, literally edit the way that they're singing. And it's a Vocaloid. It's not a real person, but it sounds quite real, sounds pretty fun. There's a lot of pop music out of Japan at the moment that are using Vocaloids, and they just twist it up a little bit to the extreme. So it does sound like a robot girl singing, but really fascinating.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I just hadn't heard of that term. I mean, it's just sort of a similar kind of thing, but yeah, there is the music side of it, and then there's the spoken word side of it, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's all interesting as to see how far that stuff can go. And there is a company in Sydney called Uncanny Valley that won the Eurovision just recently. I haven't watched what they submitted, but they won an artificial intelligence Eurovision competition type of thing. So I think they got their AI to create a song. I'm not sure about the vocals, but I think so. But the AI made the song, and then they submit it just like normal Eurovision to a point.
Yeah, wow.
And their AI won the song, so it'd be interesting to see whether that experiments with any of that sort of
absolutely.
stuff.
Shoot me a link after this chat, and I'll love to check that out. Let's end it there for this first podcast. Thanks for your time, Dan. Awesome discussion. We'll catch up again soon.
No
Talk
worries.
some more. I'm sure